When Ethan purchases a decrepit Victorian house to escape his troubled past, he has no idea he's stepping into a nightmare. Plagued by whispers in the walls, chilling apparitions, and a locket that holds a century-old secret, he discovers the tragic tale of Clara, a young girl lost to an unspeakable evil. As the house's malevolent entity grows more violent, Ethan and his friends must confront horrifying truths and risk their lives to break its hold. But some entities don't let go so easily. Ethan's life had become a tangled mess of loneliness and regret. Hoping to start fresh, he bought a dilapidated Victorian house in a quiet, almost forgotten town. The price was shockingly low, but Ethan didn't ask too many questions. He just wanted an escape. The house loomed like a sleeping beast, its windows dark and lifeless, its wooden walls groaning with age. On his first night, the silence was oppressive. Even the faintest creak of the floorboards sounded deafening. It was on his second day that he met Sarah, a wary neighbor who seemed almost relieved to see someone new move in. She glanced nervously at the house and said, "No one stays there long. They all leave, or worse." "Why?" Ethan asked, his curiosity piqued. Sarah hesitated. "Let's just say it doesn't want company." Ethan dismissed her words as small-town superstition. That evening, as he unpacked, he noticed something strange. In the reflection of a hallway mirror, a shadow moved behind him. Spinning around, he found nothing there. His nights became restless. Whispers seeped from the walls, faint and childlike, but growing louder with every passing hour. Drawn by a strange pull, Ethan ventured into the attic late one night. The air was heavy, as if the room itself was holding its breath. Amid the dust-covered relics of another time, he found an old trunk. Inside was a locket containing a photograph of a young girl with haunting eyes. Scribbled on the back of the photo were the words, "Clara, 1923. As Ethan held the locket, a cold wind swirled around him. "Help me," a whisper floated through the air. Startled, Ethan dropped the locket. He fled the attic, but the whispers followed him down the stairs. That night, he dreamed of Clara, her pale face pressed against the attic window, her hollow eyes staring into his soul. The next day, Ethan researched the house. He discovered that Clara Thompson, a young girl who had lived there a century ago, disappeared without a trace. The locals spoke in hushed tones about her father, a man obsessed with dark rituals. They whispered that Clara's spirit had been consumed by something far more sinister. Sarah finally confessed what she knew. People say Clara's father summoned an entity. It didn't just take her. It stayed, feeding on the living. Anyone who tries to uncover the truth, it doesn't let them leave. Determined to understand the horrors of the house, Ethan invited his skeptical friend Ben and Sarah to help investigate. They conducted a séance in the attic, despite Sarah's protests. As the candles burned low, a bone-chilling cold enveloped the room. At first, nothing happened. Then, the locket on the table began to tremble. A child's voice whispered, "Please free me." The whisper turned into a guttural growl. The temperature dropped further, and the shadows in the room began to stretch and writhe. One of the candles exploded, plunging the room into darkness. A deep, inhuman voice boomed, "You will not take her." The entity lashed out. Ben was thrown across the room, and Sarah screamed as claw-like marks appeared on her arm. Ethan grabbed the locket and yelled, "What do you want?" In response, the attic mirror shattered, and Clara's reflection appeared, mouthing the words, "Burn it." The group fled the attic and sought help from Mrs. Harper, the town's reclusive historian. She revealed the dark truth. Clara's father didn't just summon a demon. He bound her spirit to it, using the locket and the trunk. Destroying them might free her, but it will anger the entity. You'll be putting your lives on the line. That night, they prepared for the ritual. As they began, the house came alive with malevolence. Shadows spilled from the walls, forming grotesque shapes with hollow eyes and twisted limbs. Clara appeared at the edge of the room, her face twisted in agony. "Run," she pleaded, but the group stood their ground. Ethan threw the locket into the fireplace, but the entity retaliated. It materialized as a massive shadowy figure with glowing red eyes, its presence suffocating. It clawed at Ethan, its voice dripping with malice. "She is mine." With Sarah and Ben's help, Ethan dragged the trunk to the fire. As it burned, the entity howled in rage, the sound rattling the house's very foundation. The shadows clawed at the group, leaving scratches and bruises, but they pushed through. As the trunk was consumed by flames, Clara's spirit appeared one last time. She was no longer the tormented girl they had seen before. She was radiant, her face serene. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice filled with gratitude. The entity let out one final, ear-splitting shriek before disintegrating into nothingness. The house fell silent, but its walls bore the scars of the battle. Ethan left the house the next day, vowing never to speak of what had happened. Yet, even years later, he couldn't escape the memories. In the quiet of the night, he sometimes still heard Clara's faint whisper, "Thank you for setting me free."